All right, so we wanted to start by talking about wondering questions again today with a little bit more detail in case people weren't able to watch the video. So just a reminder about the wondering questions. We always include these questions at the end of the story. And wondering questions are questions that give students some time to wonder and kind of think about a question. These questions, they don't ask for answers really about the story, like who are the characters, who are the setting. Those aren't wondering questions. These ones are more open-ended. So there's no right or wrong answer for wondering questions. And the most important part of these questions is that they are really relevant to the children in their lives. So it gets them to think about their own personal experiences and their own feelings so that they can connect to the story in a different way and bring the story into their real life. So that's a little bit about wondering questions. So we wanted to do some of the wondering questions from the book Anansi and Vulture. So I hope everyone was able to read the book this week, but I'm going to just ask you the questions that we put in there. So I wonder what part of the story you all liked, and I wonder why you liked that part. So I put it in the chat box if maybe you're having a hard time hearing with the connection. So thinking about Anansi and Vulture, I wonder what part of the story you all liked. And then I wonder why you liked that part.
I really liked the part of the story that was about the trial, between the community elders or the chiefs and Anansi and the vulture too. And then just kind of like, I know that that the book only said like they took a while to discuss and they heard both sides of the story. But then I had a lot of fun thinking like how would you go about discussing this, yeah, I like that part the best. Maybe because I'm studying peace and I really like the process, but that was my favorite part.
So Emma liked the part that was about the elders and the chief discussing the trial. And she liked that part because she's, really interested in peace and was interested in that process. That was not disclosed to us in the story. Lots happened behind closed doors. Anybody else? And hi, Alphonse, thank you for joining. We're just talking about Anansi and Vulture, the story. And I asked everyone these questions. I wonder what part of the story you liked, and I wonder why you liked that part. So who would like to go next?
I can go. I liked the part where toward the end of the story, when the vulture goes back to the rabbit's farm, but the rabbit, and it's a more traditional way of reacting. I think Emma's spot on, and I'm old school, where the vulture sort of got his comeuppance by the rabbit that he couldn't go in. If I'm remembering the picture, there's a no vultures allowed or something on the farm. So generational interpretation.
Yeah, so Sally liked the part where he went back to the farm and then kind of went full circle, and they had to then it was no vultures or no spiders, I guess, allowed. At the beginning, it was no rabbits allowed. And then at the end, Rabbit got his farm back. I think Console put in the chat box. Console liked all the parts. Console, can you tell us if you're able to unmute or in the chat box why you liked all the parts? Maybe you guys having a hard time with the connection, but that's okay. Anyone else? Esther, Alphonse, John Demore, are you able to share what part of the story you liked?
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm not last day to find the time for reading that story because I'm busy with the training, another training. So I hope today I was distributing another last book to another librarian in Kigali. So now I'm coming to attend this training for listening to others participants. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I forgot you help with some of the logistics and that stuff.
Hello.
And then let's see. Hi, Alphonse. Oh, I think he froze. Alphonse, if you can hear us, then you're frozen, I think, for us.
We hope Alphonse is not here.
He's
You
stuck.
maybe, yeah, or sometime we can use to, if it's possible, when you have any connection to participant, can write in the short message. Maybe it can to help you to use the time well.
Alphonse, if you can hear us, maybe you can just type in the chat box.
Yeah,
Oh,
type
and we
in
just
message. Yeah.
lost him. But Console put in the chat box that she liked the story to increase her skills and learn some more vocabulary. Thank you. Great. So hopefully Alphonse can join us again. But if not, that's okay. So the next question that I'm going to put in the chat box is, I wonder if you have ever been jealous of someone else before. I wonder how you responded in that situation. And I wonder if you would do anything differently now. So this one is not so much, it's not about the story. This is just for you all to think about your own experiences. I'm going to put it in the chat again since Alphonse just came back.
Okay, I have one. This
Okay.
actually happened to me just a few weeks ago. I'm still trying to get over it because I'm jealous of a child. But there's this kid in my, okay, so like there is me and then one other guy who is also volunteering with my organization. We're the only white people in our neighborhood. And a few times I've seen this young boy. I want to say maybe like 10 or 11 years old. I don't know if he's like mixed or if he's white. I'm not sure, but he's I know that his mother is Rwandan, but I don't know if if she's a stepmother or not. I'm not sure. And anyway, so I don't see him that often, but I sometimes see him running around playing with the kids. And my sister, she's my Rwandan sister, she told me, oh yeah, like this kid, like this white kid, he can speak Kinyarwanda really, really well. And I was like, oh, okay, like probably just being nice, you know. People say I speak Kinyarwanda really well, and it's not that good. And then like 2 or 3 weeks ago, he was just at our house with one of his friends, and so I would go and he says hi to me, and I'm like, oh, hey, nice, nice. And then my sister comes out and says something to him, like asks him a question in Kinyarwanda, and this boy responds in like the most like native speaker way, and it was just so beautiful. He like even to the point where like he was like mumbling, like he didn't need to speak clearly. You know what I mean? Oh my gosh. And then I just like stood there and I just stared at him and I was like, are you freaking kidding me right now? He's so good. This is all that I want. This is all that I want. Everything I want, this boy has, you know. And then he just like ran out and left. And then I kind of just stood there. And then I looked at my sister and I'm like, God, actually, he could speak really well. And she's like, yeah, I know. I told you. And I'm like, yeah, but you didn't tell me that it was like that. And I was just dumbfounded. And I think about that boy fairly frequently. And I'm like, it just pains me. Whenever I feel like I've had a good Kinyarwanda day, I remember him and it brings me down a couple notches. Very jealous of his abilities. But yeah, like he was raised here. So like it makes sense. It makes total sense. I've only been here for 8 months. He was raised here. Children learn languages faster. This is a truth that we all know. But still, I want his skills. So yeah, that's what I'm jealous about. And the way that I reacted to it is exactly how I'm reacting now. This is live time. So yeah, that's it.
Thanks for sharing that story. I really like that story. I was gonna, if Francine, if you can hear us, or Emma, if you know, do you know the translation for jealous? I don't know.
I tell him in the message, jealous is Ishani in Kinyarwanda. So I explain him in WhatsApp already. I explained to him.
Thank you, John Demar. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And hi, Francine. Thanks for joining. So I will put in the chat box again, since Francine just joined us, but we're just doing some wondering questions right now. Yeah, so Consolee, now that we know the translation, if anyone has a story to share, you're welcome to. I'll put it in the chat for you, Francine. We're talking about the wondering questions for Anansi and Vulture. And the questions that we're asking is from the lesson plan, which is, I wonder if you've ever been jealous of someone before. And I wonder how you responded in that situation. Or you can still do the first question if you didn't get a chance, which is, I wonder what part of the story you liked. Oops, not that one. Sorry, I keep putting the questions like a gazillion times. Let me try this again.
Hello, Shauna.
Francine.
Hi.
Hello.
All right, so these are all the wondering questions we're working on. So Francine, if you want to share, or I was just going to say we lost Alphonse again, but if he wanted to share.
Okay, thank you so much, Shauna. I'm very sorry I was late because of connection. I tried, but it is not good where I am. On this question, sometime when I have a jealous with other people or someone, I tried to manage how I cannot provoke the conflict between I and him or her. How I do, I tried to take a time to think about the jealous I have for him. When I think about it, I tried to see how I can resolve before making the conflict with him or her. So I can give you one example. One day, I got like a conflict from jealous to someone, but because I took enough time to think about it, I found that is not good. This is a jealous. And this can when I continue to do the things like this can provoke the big conflict. So I tried to go to him and I asked like forgiveness. I tried to explain how I feel and why. Then I asked him to forgive me. So then he forgave me and we finished the conflict we had together. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, so Francine likes to take some time to think about it and then eventually apologize and ask for forgiveness. And that helps solve some of that conflict or resolve the jealousy. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Welcome.
Would anyone likes to share? Alphonse, I see you're back. Do you want to tell us if there's a part of the story that you liked, or if there's a time you've been jealous before of someone else? I think we can go. I'm going to share my screen. I think, unless Sally, you wanted to share anything. Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Hello.
Hi, we can hear you.
Hello, Alphonse. Hello.
Hello. I want to say to share with you my testimony about how I get a jealousy about my neighbor.
Yes, tell us.
One
Thank you.
day, my neighbor buy a car. Then he bought also the house. Then I get the jealousy to see how the little child comparatively to me, and I get jealous to see how I can build a house. Then this jealousy brought me to lend the money from bank. I go to bank but they gave me the money. Then I come and build the house. Arriving in the middle, I fail. Then I see this jealousy make me to be for because I didn't plan well the project of building the house. Only the jealousy pushed me to go to lend to pick up the money from the bank. From this time, I learned the lesson, which is this: I cannot follow. Everyone has his way to live, and everyone has his chance from God or the will. Then from that time, I put the decision to say that jealousy is not good among the people, because jealousy can push you to take what is not really allowed to you. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Alphonse, sharing about you were jealous of your neighbor who built a new house and bought a new car.
I don't know if you catch me.
Yes, we did.
We did.
Yes, we heard your story perfectly. It was a great story. Thank you for sharing. It was interesting to hear how you responded quickly for your jealousy to build a house, but then maybe you didn't plan well enough. So maybe next time, like what Francine had mentioned, thinking and waiting a bit before just reacting to the jealousy. Thank you. And I see, okay, yeah. Good, Consulate got so Consulate, if you want to respond in Kenya, Rwanda, that's okay too.
Console. Hello, Console.
Alo,
Uri kutwumva?
ndi kubumva ndi kubashimira ira jambo Jaruzi yari yananiye kuyimenya.
Ni nko kugira ishyari.
Mwakomeje gusobanura ariko birangiye mbyumvise neza, murakoze.
Bari kubaza rero ngo ese hari igihe byaba byarakubayeho, ngo ese wabyitwayemo gute?
Ibyo ngiye gusubiza ubwo uramvugira nyine birenze. Ndumva ngiye n'akantu gatoya kwisomera byambayeho. Uri umwana nyine byaje kubaho, umwe mugurira inkweto, umwana w'umukene, abandi nyine barababara. Binsaba nyine kubahumuriza ko n'abandi nzabagurira, ariko urumva ako gashyari kabayeho hagati y'abana. Nanjye sinishimiye kuko nitwo dufaranga nari mfite wo kugurira umwana umwe. Murakoze ubasobanurira.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Console. She has a story also about Jairus. Sometime at her library, he saw the poor child, and that child did not have shoes. Then Console decided to buy the shoes for him, but other children, they had a bad reaction about the Console, and to resolve the conflict, Console try to manage other children, tell them, so I will buy the shoes for you too. But she was not able to buy them because she hadn't money to buy the shoes to every child at the library. Yeah, it is that story for Console. But she realized that she caused the conflict between the children, and that one she buy the shoes because they have a jars. It was like the decision to buy the shoes for one kid. It was not a good decision because it provoked the conflict to the others. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Consoling. Yeah, yours was, the kids were jealous because of something that you did. And you were trying to be nice to buy the shoes, and then all the kids wanted new shoes too. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
So now I can share my screen. And this was in the video, but just to review some tips. So thank you all for sharing for your answers to the wondering questions. I think it's good for us to also practice answering these questions since we want our students to also do it. So we should definitely practice it as well. So some tips for wondering questions. Wondering questions take practice. So a lot of times, maybe, adults and children might not be used to being asked what they feel or think. Sometimes in a classroom, there's only one correct answer. And if you don't have the correct answer, then you're wrong. So wondering questions, there's no right or wrong. So all kids can participate and answer. But so since this might be new, you might need to explain it to students and tell them that, there's no right or wrong answer, and wondering questions are about our experience or how we feel. So it'll take practice, and hopefully students will get more comfortable to share with everybody. The second tip is to make sure you kind of affirm, which means to repeat back what a child says. So if you noticed when you all shared your story, I tried to repeat back what you shared. And that helps to show that I was listening to you and that, I heard you and I appreciated your response. And so, yeah, you don't want to say something like, yeah, that's right, or that's correct. Because then that shows that there maybe is a wrong answer, and that might kind of upset or worry some other students. So always make sure to just repeat and yeah, make sure not to kind of say like, that was a great idea, or you are awesome, because then the other students might feel bad if there's answer maybe they think is not good enough. So everyone can respond and do a good job in these, just as long as they're sharing. And then the last one is that children might start to ask their own wondering questions. So if you practice it many times, then students might start to say like, oh, I wonder, like what Emma said, I wonder what they were discussing when the chief and the elders were talking about the trial, right? That's kind of like you following the wondering in the story as well. So students might do that too. And it's important to encourage that and to really follow along with that and share in their wondering. So like for Emma's, I wonder what they were talking about. If a student says that, you can easily be like, yeah, what do you think they were talking about? That's a really interesting idea. I didn't think about that before. And so getting them to follow those wonderings and ask those questions is really great and helpful. Are there any questions about, and this is what it looks like in the lesson plan. Are there any questions about wondering questions?
Yes, I have questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so today, oh my gosh, whoopsies, sorry. Okay, today, when I only had about 30 minutes to read, and it was actually quite interesting today because Francine wasn't around, and so we had like 10 minutes left to read in Kinyarwanda, and like I could have done that, but that would have taken me like 2 hours. And so then I asked the kids if any of them wanted to try and read it, and then like all of their hands shut up, and so then we each took turns, and each kid read a page, and it was really cute. But that's not what my question was about. I just thought that was a cute thing. So like we only, because I only had 30 minutes, we only did wondering questions for maybe like 15, no, maybe like 10 minutes, I want to say. And we were able to get somewhere good, but then I noticed that the questions about jealousy and stuff, I don't know if like maybe they were missing the term or something. I tried to explain it really well and they seemed to get it, but there wasn't as much engagement. So then I kind of like shifted the conversation. It was natural, but I don't remember how we got there. And I don't know if this would fall into wondering questions or not, but then we kind of started having a discussion about like what is thievery almost, and like who in the story was the thief. And it was pretty interesting to see the different answers because I was like, hey, who's a thief? And then they would all go, oh, Anansi's the thief, obviously. And I'm like, okay, what about Vulture? Did Vulture steal anything? And then you have like a mixed like yes and no kind of. So then I asked them all like why, what they thought about that. And they told me. But then I was like, okay, like what if you find a wallet with nobody's name on it on the side of the road and you pick it up and take it home? Are you stealing? And then like mixed answers, which was pretty interesting. And then I was like, okay, so if it's not stealing, then let's say somebody comes up to you a few days later and says, that's my wallet, can I have it back? And you don't give it back to them. Then what? And then they go, oh no, now that's stealing. And then I asked them if they thought if Anansi, because he ended up poor and friendless at the end, and I asked them if he deserved that, or if he should have been given a little bit of money or something else. And then they said, no, he deserved it. And I'm like, oh my, we're like, why? And then they said, well, being poor is the worst punishment, and that's what he got. That's what you get for stealing your friend's farm. And I'm like, wow, okay, I love the passion. That's great. And so like, I don't know, like, would you consider those to be wondering questions? I know it's maybe more like discussion questions rather than wondering, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it depends. I mean, I think if you had framed it like, I wonder who the thief was in the story, because there's many answers to that, but that's also kind of a big question. So I think it's good that you ask some follow-up, like, well, more pointedly, like, well, what about Vulture? And then kind of following that. So it's kind of a gray area, but I think, some of the examples you said were thinking questions, some were wondering. It kind of just depends. But I think the biggest part too is that wondering questions kind of like the second part of what you shared gets them thinking about their life. So like, I wonder if you saw a wallet on the side of the road, how would you respond? I think that's a good example of a wondering question. But yeah, it's the framing of it. Because if you ask a question like, is Anansi the thief? Then that's not a wondering question, because then you're asking them to say like yes or no.
Okay, right. Okay.
But if it was like, I wonder who you think is the thief, or I wonder what you would do in that situation, I think those are examples of wondering questions, definitely.
Okay.
But it's like you said, it's something that the children have to maybe practice. So maybe with the jealousy one, they weren't really sure or comfortable to share that, which is fine. So I think it's good that you kind of helped them get there. So if you do that, that's totally fine. And I liked that you had the kind of wondering question asking them about the scenario if they were in there. I think that's a really good example.
Yeah, not, there was less participation this time. I think it's because Francine wasn't there. She has better classroom management than I do. But then I asked them if they had ever like stolen, like found something and took it. And then some of them said, like, it was just like sometimes some of them said yes, some said no. And then I was like, oh, what about a book? Has anybody ever taken a library book? And then right away, everybody, no. I don't know if that's all true, but
yeah, it's definitely something that I'm sure many people don't want to admit if they've taken something, especially kids. But yeah, I think it's just really like kind of keep in your head, like if the questions that like we suggest aren't working, that's fine. Just when you pose new ones, I would just recommend like keeping in mind, like, what can I say to get a lot of different responses? So
okay, that helps.
Something to keep in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions anyone has about wondering questions? It's really, yeah, it just really comes down to getting the students to think about their own experience or their own life, and to get them really kind of, what am I trying to say? Like get them kind of open to different answers. So it's very open-ended. So if there's no questions, the last part we wanted to just share with you all as like a resource is we talked a little bit last week about classroom like posters and decorations to put up when Emma mentioned pronouns and practicing like he, she, his, her, etc. So we wanted to share just some ideas of classroom posters you can put around to really help students as they're reading the book and learning everything in English. So if you put it on the wall, it helps support students' kind of continued English learning even after reading the book. It also provides like a cue or kind of like a little helpful hint for children as they're reading the story. And yeah, it's just nice to have some decorations and stuff on the library to kind of welcome students to come in and encourage them to be in the space. So yeah, so we're going to share 4 examples of some nice like classroom posters that you can put when you're reading in the library. So this one that I'm sharing is a vocabulary word wall. This is in Nepalese. It's for our Nepal partners. So obviously not the translations, they're not Kenya, Rwanda. But it's an example of you can add the vocabulary words, you can add the translations if you want, you can add photos to help them. It's a little hard to see because the pictures are so small, but like for hot, they have a picture of the sun. So if you can do something like this. You can write the words on a piece of paper. If you have a printer, you can print out a picture with the word. There's like a bunch of different ways that you can do that, depending on, you know, what supplies and resources you have. So there's just one example of vocabulary words. So as you're reading the stories, so for Anansi, what were the vocabulary words? It's not coming to my head right now, but for example, if you're teaching the vocabulary words for Anansi and Vulture, you can write them on a piece of paper and then put them on the room so that as children are reading, they can always look back to the vocabulary words and remember which ones, what the words are. Another one's an alphabet chart. This is obviously if your students are pretty early to learning English, you can have the alphabet with some different pictures of words. You can also write kind of the sounds of them, but that's a little bit more technical and children might not know. But if you put like A, you can put an apple so that they know A is for apple, and I'll give them an example. Another example is this is the pronouns chart. So we talked about this last time a little bit, but so this is just one example, but so you have for I, she's thinking about herself. You have I, me, my, and then it's a little girl, it's she, her, hers. For a little boy, he, him, his, and then multiple people, they, we, us, our, them. So something like this is like a good reference for students. They can look at it and think, it's 2 or more people, so I might need to use they. Or if it's a girl, I need to use she. So some variation of this is helpful for students to always have and look at if they forget. And then the last one that we thought about is the parts of a story. So this one, you could, maybe not all of them, but you could put, you know, characters, setting, problem, solution, theme. And then as you read each story, you can add word cards or change the words to match the story. So for characters, as you read a Nancy and Vulture, you could add a Nancy, Vulture, Rabbit, Elders, Chief, or whatever. So for each story, you can change this and add to it so that after you read the story, the students can look at it and remember what it was about, what the problem was, and things like that. So these are just some examples. I don't know, Sally, if you had anything you wanted to share about classroom posters.
If you have the space, this is a good way to support the language and the concept. And if this were white background without the print on it, you could use a picture if you've got just young ones. If you've got transition picture and the word. This is from Maida's Oh Muddy Mud. It is on Friends Peace Team website under Literacy for Peace and Justice, I think. But all of these were the who in the story. What did they do? If you have time, it enhances the language. The younger the children, the more you can do this, the more solid they are in their understanding. Alphabet charts in a classroom literacy, it's A for the name, A for the sound, a picture, and then we have done it with a gesture as well. Anything to help the kids remember the word and the concept and the sound, because you all have mentioned the fact that hearing the stories has helped with the pronunciation. So if you find, and there are some online, we're in the process of creating some to put in a toolkit that we will share with you when the toolkit is built. That's the issue. Down the road, by fall, we hope.
Eventually.
Eventually, yes. But the more you practice, the more comfortable the children become, the better or bigger their vocabulary is also. I like this chart, your pronouns chart. You can play games with this and practice a story. Shauna is showing her screen. Shauna is conducting the lesson. Shauna is, and okay, I've used Shauna's name 3 times. I could say, Shauna is showing her screen. She is conducting the lesson, and build using children's names with the pronoun, with the boys and the girls, or they, or I, and have them practice these games if it is suitable for your story. The biggest thing is getting the story across. But if it comes up, hopefully this is something you could use.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, so you'll see in the lesson plan for next week, I added a pronoun activity, kind of what Sally mentioned. And it's funny, it's about Francine. So it has Francine's name just because it was the only girl's name that came to my mind. But it helps practice the pronouns and also the vocabulary. So you can look at that as an example of a pronouns activity. There's also a David in there. I don't know, I got silly when I was making it. So yeah, so you can read about the pronouns activity with Francine and David. But yeah, so these are just like fun ways to help students practice and improve their English literacy. So I just wanted to share some examples. Any questions about classroom posters? I think Emma mentioned that everyone at least has like some space and are able to put things on the walls in your libraries. So hopefully you're able to find some space and add it to your library. It'd be a good addition. But if there's no questions, then just some reminders, read the lesson plan, watch a video, just the same thing every week. And then also, if you do add some classroom posters in your library, we'd love to see some photos of what it looks like and what you did. So feel free to take pictures of your read aloud or take pictures of your posters. And then also be sure to just read the lesson and watch the video when you get a chance. And I think that's it for me. Francine, any like reminders or anything, or anyone have any last questions? Sally?
I get lots of emails, and I was reading an article about a guy named Bloomberg, and he has a list of top cities in the world. And he mentioned Kigali, Rwanda, because of your work that you're doing on climate and environment. So thumbs up.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for joining. I'm going to put the recording on YouTube. So for anyone who was not able to join, they can watch it later if they have time. But thank you, and I'll see you all next week. We have 2 weeks left, and then you don't have to see me anymore.
No,
Yeah.
that's only 2 times.
I know. I'm sure we'll do more things together, but at least for this one, only 2 more.
Oh, la,
Yeah,
la.
thank you again, Shana. This has been really great.
Good.
It's
The
fun.
kids really like it too.
Good. I'm glad. Good to hear. All right. Well, take care, everyone. I'll see you next Thursday.
Mhm.
yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.